All right, I want to do another video, and I think I have two choices. I can either do a video about continue, or I can do a video about adventure, which sounds more fun. You guys can't reply. Adventure or continue? Adventure or continue? Adventure. What is adventure? Continue. What does it mean to continue? Adventure. Let's go with adventure. Okay. um, I saw a tweet recently that was something that said something like, in modernity, you have no more opportunities for adventure, right? Like once upon a time, you could have gone on a voyage or you could have gone on an expedition, and all the map has been explored, right? And space is not really a frontier. There are no frontiers left. And so all you have left is like boredom and meaninglessness and despair. And I completely disagree, man. And it's so, and it's interesting that I completely disagree, because I think there might have once been a time where I would have kind of agreed, and I think that is a perspective very much informed by your current circumstances in life, as well as your current set of frames, and your framing and your context kind of shape each other in a yin yang, chicken and egg kind of way. And I think one of the central challenges I remember writing about was, is life an adventure, or is it an ordeal, or is it both? And can we make life less of an ordeal and more of an adventure, right? And how do we do that? And I guess I would start by saying that I don't think I'm not sure if every human wants to adventure. Like it does seem like something that has variance in like frequency. Like some people want a life that's really thrill seeking, adventurous, right? Kind of wild. And some people kind of want a life that is safe, familiar, comfortable. And I don't think either one is correct or wrong. I don't think, and I think very often there's this whole class of people who make such an identity out of being some kind of risk taker or some kind of adventurer or whatever, that they pass moral judgment on people who aren't like that or who don't want that. And I do not want to be that kind of person, right? But I will also say that there's a lot of people who pretend that they are adventurers, meaning, because it's like, and one of my favorite examples of this is when people say, like on dating profiles, for example, that they're looking for their partner in crime, which is like a very, it's like, it's this play acted naughtiness or adventurousness. And I don't want to judge people for their personal the way that people choose to describe their lives. Like, if that's what you enjoy, then go ahead. But it is slightly frustrating when you're an adventurer of some kind and you're looking to meet other adventurers, and you find that it does seem like the majority of people who are speaking about the joys of adventure, about the goodness of adventuring, they're just doing it as an act. And again, I don't want to judge those people, but it does make it harder to meet fellow adventurers in what I describe as like the city or the village tavern, right? But so the way to meet other adventurers is to go on your adventure, to leave the city gates, to leave the town, the village gates or whatever, and head out on the trail, metaphorically speaking. And there the people that you meet on the road are fellow adventurers, right? It's proof of work, right? And but I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. I remember when I was a child and reading lots of books and watching movies and all of those things. I felt like so very often there's a lot of storytelling is about adventure, right? The hero's journey, which I'll make a separate video about the book. And it's just the sense of like Luke Skywalker or Frodo, Aragorn, in all these media. We have all this media about adventuring, right? What it means to go out into the world and to seek your fortune or to seek your destiny, right? And to face trials and tribulations and do battle with the dragon or the enemy or the demon or whatever, and to attain help from a mentor, and to meet with the Earth Mother or whatever it is you want to call it, and then there's the belly of the whale, and it's just, there's so much of that story, right? Some will say it's the monomyth, it's the central story. Life is fundamentally a journey. You're born and you die. It's a line. Again, the moment I say these things, I immediately think of the counter examples. But birth and death imply a journey in between, right? And some people say it's cyclical and whatever, and I don't really want this video to be about that, so I'm just let's just assume that it's linear, even though it's not, right? Or it might not be, who knows? But there is that your life is a trip, and each day is sure, each day is a cycle in a sense, morning and night, but like you grow older, you go through puberty, which is a transition that is challenging in some ways, and then you go through stages of life. You might find a partner, you might get married, you might have children, and then that's another transition where now you're an adult, and you have, even growing older, I find that now that I'm 30, my sense of my relationship with other people, particularly younger people, is evolving. For most of my life, I was the youngest child in my family, and I always kind of had the identity of the young guy, and people younger than me were a kind of inconsequential, irrelevant, like they're just infants, right? Or like young children. They're not really participating members of society yet, in a sense. And as I get older, now I find myself in more of a there's more of a tone of mentorship in some senses. In some people look up to me as the older guy, and I always look up to older guys as the older guys, right? And men and women both. But like why did I bring that up? It's transformational, right? And that is part of the adventure of life, that you have to leave behind what you were before, right? You have to put away your previous identity. You have to go through some kind of transformation, and these threshold crossings are painful in certain ways, and they are they cause anxiety and stress, and like, I'm not that person anymore, I'm not, and things like that. I'm married now, and like like, just how am I gonna find my meaning in life, and all of those things. It's just this, and all of those things will seem like an ordeal, and maybe there's no adventure that doesn't present itself as an ordeal. I remember when I started work, so in 2012 December I got married. In 2013 I bought a house, I got a job, and my life changed very dramatically. I moved from the east of Singapore to the north of Singapore, which is not, it's a couple of hours away. It's like an hour and a half-ish away, which isn't like a great distance, but it's far away enough that I no longer could meet my friends, my childhood friends, like by just going down to the coffee shop, which was how we used to meet. We used to kind of just improvise hanging out, like we didn't make plans or anything like that. And so that was a change. And even if I did meet, I found that now that some of them were still in school, in university and stuff, and I was married and having a job, and just our life trajectories were different, our paths diverged, and I could no longer count on them for the so they were still friendly, but they could no longer provide the support that I needed from them, in a sense, or that I needed from people. So I had to find new people, and that's a kind of adventure in a sense. It's a kind of ordeal as well, right? But that is the nature of change and challenge. And I remember, I think, quote tweeting that tweet, or replying to it. No, I quoted it without quote tweeting it, because I didn't want to harass the guy. But like I was saying, I think the heart of adventure, right, is being honest about your feelings. And I think we live in a world, broadly speaking, I think this is pretty universally true. And it's even in the old story, so it's not just about modernity, right? It's that people, so you're born as a bundle of feelings as a baby, right? You cry, you're hungry, you're thirsty, you're uncomfortable, you want to be comfortable. You were in the womb, which was bliss, right? And then you're born into the world, and it's chaos and noisy and loud and unpleasant. And then, so that's an ordeal, right? But it's also an adventure, because you get to see things now, you get to smell things, you get to taste things, you get to interact with reality. And it's a game, it's a challenge, And the thing about, so for most people, I think we go to school, and school is a kind of bloody prison, which I'm going to make a separate video about. And that's very much an ordeal, I think. But there's still some adventure. You make friends, you develop. I mean, if you're like studious and you're trying to get good grades, there's a kind of adventure of how do you apply yourself. I did not participate in that at all properly. Like I couldn't get it right. So like my whole, like what could have been a fulfilling part of my education, I didn't have the scaffolding I needed, and I didn't have the support and the advice and the right kind of nudging. I would describe it as, it's like playing a video game where you don't know the controls and you don't know what you're looking at. And so you just kind of like, if it's a driving game, you're driving the wrong direction and you're like crashing everywhere you go, and the whole thing just a miserable experience. Like you need to be, like, if you're playing a driving racing game, right? There's checkpoints, it's a time limit. It's satisfying once you understand that you got to go through the checkpoint to extend your time, and then you got to, when you press the accelerator, you got to lay off the accelerator before you turn, otherwise you're going to crash. And it's very frustrating when you just keep crashing into things and you don't want to play anymore. And that was my experience in school. And if only I had someone who guided me into seeing how I could have made the environment work for me, which does require a lot of work, and it shouldn't, right? Ideally, the environment should be optimized for learning, but it's not, because that's not what school is about, and that's not what this video is about. So this video is about adventure. And playing music was an adventure for me. I was learning how to play music. I was learning to write songs. I was learning to interface with other musicians, and all that mess that entails, right? Like understanding, having differences of opinion, differences of creative vision, coming together to try and do something and make music together, but finding that you have differences of opinions or whatever, and then you have conflicts, you feel betrayed. I'm writing a whole novel about it. But that was exhilarating. It was the emotions were high. I guess hormones were involved in that, very heightened sense of whatever. And then I got a job and I went to work every day, and I remember at multiple points during my 5.5 years as a professional, right? As a person with a career and a job, daily job, I remember feeling very bleak at some point. I was like, oh my god, my mortgage is going to take me 30 years to pay off. It's just been a couple of years in, and I feel like shit, man. Like, even though I love my boss, I love my colleagues, I love my job, like as much as I could love a job, I don't think I could have had another job that I would have loved more at the time. I now know better. I now understand, back to the racing game analogy, I now understand how to make a situation work for me. That's a skill that I've developed in, like, it took me like 20 something years to develop that skill, I guess, or like a decade. And so I could now find a way to maximize my enjoyment of a job. But, and what I enjoy more is not having a job, right? Is being an entrepreneur, having multiple sources of income. That's an adventure that fits my psychological profile better. But what I wanted to say was about feelings, right? So there comes a point, I think, where it's very natural. School definitely trains you in this. Parents, I think, if they're not very enlightened, they may encourage this either by accident or semi-maliciously based on their own trauma and their own expectations and fears and anxieties and whatnot. But there is this suppression of feeling, right? Like, where you're not supposed to feel. Like, it doesn't matter what you feel, you're supposed to study. It doesn't matter what you feel, you're supposed to get a job and pay the bills. Like, fuck your feelings, right? And when you're in that state and you suppress your feelings, your life becomes dull. That's my experience. I found that when I had to suppress my feelings, to my day-to-day emotions, and I had to kind of focus on these, on the ordeal of existence, right? When I had to confront the ordeal of existence and it didn't look or feel like an adventure, and I couldn't quite muster the strength or the smarts or the sensitivity or the confidence or all the things that you need to turn that ordeal into an adventure. And it's project management, which I already have a video about, right? There's an art of learning project management to turn ordeals into a bit more of an adventure. I didn't have that back then, and I remember being depressed, and I remember feeling cold and feeling empty and feeling like, is this what my life is going to be for the rest of my life? Am I just going to go to work, come back, scroll through memes on my commute, try to write a little bit, and then, you know, watch TV, eat dinner, go to bed, wake up, go to work again. Like, is that cycle gonna repeat itself for, you know, maybe you get a vacation once a year, but is that life? Is that living? You know, it feels like an elaborate jail sentence. You know, I have a blog post that's like, a man lives in a box, right? My house is a box. You live in a box, you get into the elevator, which is another box, you go down, you get on the bus, which is another box, you take that box to the train station, where you get in another box called the train. You go there and you get in the office, which is another box, and then you sit in your chair at your cubicle, and then you're sitting in front of your computer, which is another box, and it's just boxes. Then, like, when do you live, right? That was my feeling. And I am proud of my younger self for saving as much money as he could. Like, I think a common temptation is to you know, ameliorate the pains of living, of the ordeal of living, with creature comforts, right? Like, you go out and get drunk and get smashed with your friends, and that tends to cost a lot of money. At least it does where I live. And just, you know, you pick up an expensive hobby or something, and then you have like your lifestyle, kind of the cost of your lifestyle that you don't even really enjoy that much. It increases to the point where not only are you, you know, it's that wage slavery cycle. You know, I don't want to be insensitive to when I say slavery, you know, it's a very you get it. I'm not trying to diminish people who are living in truly you know, these are first world problems, right? But they are real problems, and people do kill themselves over it, or they just live in misery. And you know, those of us in the first world with internet access and videos and whatnot, like, we have a position of privilege relative to the people who are living in really abject conditions. If you look it up, like, there are people who are basically still born into economic bondage, which is fucked up. And I didn't really want to go there in this video, but I think it just bears mentioning, right? But yeah, for those of us who can, you know, have enough resources and a condition in life that, you know, if you can sit around watching videos, I'm guessing you're probably in a first world country, right? Probably, I don't know. Tell me where you're from. Like, tell me your stories. Tell me what your story is like. But like, you know, amongst the people that I know, like, our lives are like, you know, we live in modern life, we eat fast food, we watch TV, and we get angry at stuff on Twitter, and there's just, it's a kind of ordeal, even if it's relatively more comfortable than people who are struggling. And, you know, I don't want to romanticize the lives of laborers and people who are struggling in, like, you know, blue collar work and stuff like that, but I don't want to. Do I want to say? What do I want to do? It's just, you know, there have been studies about like depression in different countries and stuff, and there was this interesting bit in the book Tribe by Sebastian Younger, right? Sebastian Younger, yes, and one of the studies he pointed out was like, people who lived in, I think, like rural Mexico, they were less depressed, and then when they moved to the US, you know, they made more money, they made, like, and that kind of thing, but they became more depressed. Like, so there is, you know, there's something about the psychological quality of life where, you know, you might be like, and I'm sure there are people who are, you know, especially like children of billionaires, they have all the money they'll ever need and more, and they're miserable and they're depressed, and I really believe that is real pain, you know, and it's never classy to talk about that when people are literally starving, but I do think that there is, you know, I'm not going to say that there's dignity in poverty or starving or whatever. That's bullshit, right? Like, you know, everybody who's in those dire straits, they want the freedom they want their children to grow up and get office jobs and drink overpriced lattes at Starbucks and feel middle class guilt, right? But like, there's something about, again, I don't want to be too confident in saying these things, because, you know, all I have is my life and my reading and stuff like that, and, you know, would I trade positions with those people? I wouldn't, you know. Like, I want to see them be freed from their economic struggles, right? So, you know, I remember when I was reading, I think, Debt by David Graeber, one of the thoughts that came to my mind was really that all injustice is downstream of economic injustice, you know, like racial injustice, gender injustice, like there's all kinds of shit, but like, it really, like as long as there's economic injustice, every other form of injustice is kind of downstream. Like, you have to correct the problem where economic opportunity is concerned. And that's the whole. I'm not an economist. I'm not a money guy, finance guy. I don't know. I'm probably wrong about a bunch of these things, So I'm wary of saying these things, but these are just kind of the things on my mind, And but having that kind of segue where I just talk about there's some stuff that's kind of complicated and messy, and I don't really know what to think about it, and the way I think about it is probably wrong. But all of that said, adventure for which way Western man, right? Like for people who have relatively comfortable lives, even if that comfort is very much like a kind of prison, like a psychic prison. Your challenge is to be honest with yourself about your feelings. Like that was the case for me, right? And it took me a long time to come to terms with my traumas from my I don't want to say it's from my family, but like just growing up with my family, I developed certain issues. Everybody does, right? Everybody has issues that they get from their family one way or the other. Most people do. And then from going to school and growing up a minority, like there are all these things that just kind of chip at you in certain ways, and they imprint on you in certain ways, and they shape your thinking. They give you limiting beliefs about what you're capable of and who you are and what you can do. And one of the creativity is an adventure, man. Me making these videos, it's a kind of adventure. I'm excited about it. I'm excited about making new videos every day, making multiple new videos every day. And not everyone's gonna watch it, not everyone's gonna validate me for it, but so there's an ordeal element, right? But I have devised this project for myself in such a way that it feels like an adventure. There's a quote from the most famous quote, I believe, from the Bhagavad Gita is that Krishna telling Arjuna, you're entitled to your labor, but you're not entitled to the fruits of your labor, right? So you shouldn't be doing things in pursuit of reward specifically. If you get rewards, that's great, but you should be doing the things that you want to do independent of the rewards, right? The labor itself should be the reward. And I think that's true for me when I'm making these videos, because I am enjoying the process. I am enjoying speaking, even if no one else listens but me in the future. And I've already crossed that threshold, so I know that people are going to be watching this, which is nice. I appreciate you for being here. Have I made my point about adventures? Your life can be an adventure, that's what I'm trying to say. You can, even if you're working... So, okay, let me talk to my younger self, right? Let me talk to 24-year-old, 25-year-old Visa. Hey, 24-year-old Visa, right? You are busy with work every day, man. Wow, you're spending so much time and so much of your head space thinking about your work every day. It's very important that you take breaks from work. You're not doing yourself or your team any favors by working yourself to the bone. And it's not even like you're that productive, right? You're pretty much you're doing this kind of self-flagellating work theater where you sit in front of your computer for hours and hours, but you're not really that productive, and you get distracted a little bit here and there, and you procrastinate here and there, but you convince yourself that it happens, but you're actually working because you're sitting in front of the computer. That's not how it works. What you need is first of all, I believe that you can't be productive for more than 4 hours a day. I've come to believe that that's true. And if you try to work around it, you're just going to get into more trouble, and it's just going to fuck up your sleep. It's going to fuck up your expectations of what you can and cannot do. Don't do that shit. You can only work 4 hours a day, in my opinion. And so plan out your 4 hours of work a day, and then plan out what fun you're going to have. That's very important, because if you're not having any fun, if you're not doing things you love, at least for a couple of hours a day, then there's going to be a part of you that rebels against the authority that's your head. That you're like a taskmaster. You're an anxious tyrant of your own body, your own head. And the tyrant's thinking, oh, we need to make money. Oh, we need to be good at work. Oh, we need to work harder. And you try to slave drive yourself. Okay, I keep saying slaves, sorry. You try to, well, in the context of your head, right? You try to pressure yourself and push yourself and just coerce yourself into doing things. And that other part of you that is being coerced is just as much a part of you as you are. It's just as smart as you are. It's smarter than you are in some ways because I don't know about the neurology of it, but like, your subconscious can process more information than your conscious can. And you don't want to get into a fight with your subconscious. You will not win, right? That takes a while to realize. So you have to make friends with your subconscious, which is more powerful than you, which is a strange thing to come to terms with. But when you realize it and you have a healthy relationship and you agree to give your subconscious freedom to play and explore, then it will be likelier to work with you on your goals, right? You have to make space for that. And so 4 hours of work, right? And then, however many hours of play or exploration or fun, you do that, and you will find that you get distracted less during work because you know in advance that you have scheduled time for you to relax and unwind and live your life, right? I think what I remember is that the subconscious part of you gets worried that you're missing out on life. If you're working all the time, you're missing out on memes, you're missing out on conversations with friends, and your subconscious is right to think those things. It's smarter than you in some ways, and you have to let it have the space. Like, you wouldn't do that to a friend, right? Imagine there's two of you. Imagine there's you and your friend is working for you, and you are the manager. You wouldn't, I'm assuming, I'm talking to my younger self, you wouldn't slave drive your friend and say you have to work 10 hours a day. You would never say that shit. It's not fair to anybody. It's not fair to you as well. And you have to make space for yourself to play. And that play, okay, how you frame it, there are different ways of framing it, and you might receive it differently. So if you frame it as just play, dude, just have fun, that can work. You might also want to frame it as play is profound, and the things that you learn from play and the things that you do when you're in a play state are gonna be way smarter, way more sensitive, way more beautiful than the things that you do in your work state. That you will end up, as a creative, which you are, right? As a creative, the best shit you're gonna do is gonna happen while you're playing. So it's critical that you play. And like, for people who are listening on this conversation between me and my past self, if you get too caught up in the idea of that your play has to be productive, then you fall into the trap again where where your play now becomes work, and you can't really play when you think that it's work. So you do have to have some kind of separation. You do have to have some part of your life where you don't give a fuck. It's important, right? Where it's not subjected to that authoritarian, top-down, legible, whatever. You need true freedom as best as you can simulate it within some, like, you don't yet have infinite money, you don't yet have no responsibilities, whatever, and you might have family or friends or whatever who will, you live in a society, right? Whatever, fuck, but that you can create a space where you can simulate freedom better than you experience outside of it. And the taste of freedom that you feel there, it's beautiful. And you will want more of it. And it's good to have more of it if you're a creative person. And again, I don't think this applies to everybody. It definitely applies to my younger self. So if you relate to me, right, then it probably applies to you. But, caveat emptor, right? Like think for yourself. But yeah, I wish I had appreciated the importance of me backing the fuck up from myself and to not coerce myself into doing things that I wasn't capable of doing, and to appreciate the almost like a parent-child breakdown inside my head, right? You have to listen to yourself, you have to negotiate with yourself, and you have to be fair to yourself. And the best way for me to do that, I found, is to pretend that I'm multiple different people, because I'm fairer to other people than I'm fair to myself. And when you do that, I find that when you have that kind of a symbiotic relationship, then that's like not crashing into the walls. Then you can start playing, you can start going on joyrides, you can start having fun, you can start jumping in and out of between work mode and play mode, and then life becomes an adventure, right? Even if it's just at your job can become an adventure. Or if your job is not, you can change your job if you want. You can go start looking for other jobs, or you can save up a lot of money and take a sabbatical every couple of years and then spend a year having fun, which I did, and that's been paying off for me. I can't promise it'll work for everybody, but like, you have to be sensitive. Consider your own options. You know yourself better. If you don't do some journaling and think about it and figure it out, there's always a move, man. I suffered for a few years, in a sense, at my own hand, by my own attempt to coerce myself into some kind of self-loathing driven self-improvement, it did not work for me. It did not. It was really when I consider how I have improved as a person, how I've become more higher voltage being, right? More joyful, more playful, more exuberant, less insecure. All of that came from a place of love. It came from my writing, right? You can go and look it up if you want. I have like hundreds of journal entries in my word vomit site, and it's just the amount of, it takes tenderness, it takes, it's really, you don't want to be in an abusive relationship with yourself. You want to not do that, because once you do that, then everything is an ordeal. So adventure is about letting your curiosity lead, right? You can have an adventure in a library. You can have an adventure in Wikipedia. You can have an adventure on Twitter. You can have an adventure where you save up some money and then you travel. Well, right now it's COVID, so it's harder, but you can travel somewhere, go somewhere new, eat some new food, brush your teeth with your other hand, right? Like, just do things differently. Try to see things from a new perspective. Realize that everything is kind of an art project for yourself, for an audience of you. Do things that you think are beautiful. Do things that you admire and respect. List out what you admire and respect, and pursue that with joy and curiosity. Don't do it because it's an obligation. Like, don't give yourself homework. Just I don't know how to precisely help someone navigating that kind of, if their work mindset or their puritanic, whatever their mindset, has contaminated their play. I don't quite know how to pull them out of it, except by being playful myself. And hopefully you see that I'm having fun and realize that you could be having fun too. Try to think back to the last time you really had fun and ask yourself what was fun about it. And really, an adventure is just letting fun drive, right? Wherever it wants to go. And it's fun because you don't know what's going to happen, right? There isn't a foregone conclusion. Like, you haven't, is that the right phrase, foregone conclusion? You don't know where you're going to go, right? Pick some random fuck spot on the map, whatever. It's a metaphorical map, whether it's, you're going to learn how to dance, you're going to learn how to sing. You can't know in advance what, like, 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, that pursuit is going to open up avenues of new opportunities for you that you can't even imagine yet, because you don't currently have the imagination and you don't know what you don't know. So the world is full of unknown unknowns. You must allow the world to surprise you. And the world will surprise you. It's fucking big. It's so much stuff's going on. 7 billion people of all kinds of minds, all kinds of ideas, right? And if you think that the world isn't going to surprise you, and you want your life to be predictable, you will be blocking out any evidence or any suggestion of things that are surprising. So weirdly as it is, you have to allow the world to surprise you. You have to accept that you don't know everything. Your current model of reality is limited and flawed to degrees that you don't understand and you cannot perceive. And you have to be open to surprise. You have to let people surprise you. Let the world surprise you. And that's the adventure. Done. Let me know your stories in the comments. Tell me what you've been through. Tell me what adventures you are seeking or hoping to find, or let's chat. Done.